Welcome to codemantra's Accessibility Insight interview series. I'm Barry Bealer, Senior Vice President of Strategic Alliances at codemantra, and your host for today's session. Welcome back to our Accessibility Insight interview series. This is segment 4 of 5. We are here today with Bill Kasdorf, an expert in accessibility for publishers and a member of several W3C working groups and NISO's Video and Audio Metadata Guidelines Working Group. Bill is joined by my colleague, Ian Smith, our Director of Accessibility Platforms and Solutions. So gentlemen, let's talk a little bit about born accessible versus publication remediation at the end of the publication process. So it appears that some publishers have adopted this born accessible workflow while others are in a more traditional workflow where they remediate the PDF post-processing. Can both of you provide some pros and cons of each approach and describe if you see a trend in one direction or the other as far as adoption? So Ian, let's start with you on this one.
Sure. As you said, Barry, I think some have taken a holistic approach by implementing certain policies which ensure their new publications are produced accessible. There are certainly still others that are working towards such a strategy, and they're required, therefore, to remediate existing pubs on an as-needed basis. Both of these achieve the compliance, result in the end, but the pro of the born accessible approach is it's going to be the most efficient over time. Maybe requires some heavy thought and reworking of processes at the beginning, but again, in the end, they're going to have a much more efficient workflow that saves them cost and time over the long term. Those that are still, I consider remediation a reactive approach. There's sometimes impediments that really keep them from being able to achieve a born state, but certainly that's the approach to go, making them accessible from the beginning versus the remediation.
How about you, Bill? What have you been seeing?
Well, actually, I think I'd like to make two comments about this that are relevant. One is that accessibility is not a binary thing, and workflows are not binary things. And what I mean by that is different users with different print disabilities often need different kinds of files and different kinds of remediation to be done on those files to work for their use. So for example, I do a lot of work with people that work in the disability services offices at universities. And even though, yes, EPUB is inherently more accessible, many users are using technology like a Kurzweil that currently doesn't use EPUB as well as it uses PDF. So those users want that PDF. And the other thing about the workflows not being binary is that those are not two separate workflows. But if you get your workflow right for EPUB, where you've got good structural markup, et cetera, it's much easier to get that navigation and structure into your PDF than if if it's the Wild West. So even when remediation is still going to be required, as Ian points out, getting a good workflow that's moving at least toward born accessible really pays off.